Hi everyone. I'm Jonas from Chainbound, and yeah, thanks to Flashbots for inviting me. I'll be talking about block and blob propagation with some napkin math and all before and after PeerDAS. The goals of this lightning talk will be primarily to present some questions about scaling blobs, again, like supported by napkin math bandwidth estimations before and after PeerDAS. I want to shed more light on the PBS pipeline specifically, as most of the focus in all of the discussions is on the validator. And I want to, again, show that the validators are not the only entity we should consider when scaling blobs. First some prerequisites. So relays are currently responsible for propagating 90% of the blocks and thus also the blobs. They must do this before the attestation deadline, which is currently 4 seconds into the slot. And this, takes up a lot of bandwidth, which is dominated currently by the blob count. Another prerequisite is how Ethereum propagates data, which is through a protocol called Gossip Sub. Gossip Sub is a mix of basically two sort of sub protocols. You have an eager push protocol and then a lazy pull protocol. And what that means in practice is that every node in the network maintains some full mesh links with other peers over which they exchange full messages. And with the other peers, they just exchange announcements of which the recipient can then decide whether they need that message or not. So these full mesh links, they create a lot of duplication and redundancy, but they also make sure that messages arrive quickly over the network. And last point on this, so in Ethereum, the mesh degree, which is the amount of mesh links, like full mesh links that each node has, is by default set to 8 in the specs. So let's look at some napkin math. If you want to look at the outbound data required to broadcast a block, these are the parameters right now. So you have the block size, which is around 150 kilobytes. On the P2P network, this is actually compressed, so it's probably going to be a bit lower than that. The blob target, which is 6 right now. And then we have a gossip amplification factor, which we will, for now, we set to the mesh degree, which is 8. So then to calculate outbound data per block, we have this formula, and right now we get to around 7.3 megabytes per block that the relay has to push out to the network. We talked to Ultrasound, and then looking at some of their data, they win around 108,000 blocks per month, which comes down to 793 gigabytes per month. But in actually checking their data, their outbound data is actually closer to 2 terabytes per month. What we can learn from this is that the amplification factor is probably much higher than 8 times. Most likely because the data they send is very new, and so there's not peers on the network will almost always request that data, which leads to a higher amplification factor. So let's correct it to, let's say, 16. And at that point, the adjusted data per block becomes 14 megabytes, which is still reasonable. Now, after PeerDAS, there is another parameter that gets introduced, which is the erasure coding extension. And that is 2 times your original data. So you erase your code and you extend the data by 2 times. At that point, you just multiply by 2 and you get this outbound data per block. I created a table with some blob targets that are being proposed in these blob parameter only forks. And I'm not going to go over each and every row, but the point here is that at the higher blob targets, data per block starts actually becoming very, very high. And for illustration, at a 1 gigabit per second uplink, these are your transmit latencies, which are like which become quite high actually. And so just remember that this is like within the 4 second attestation deadline, everything needs to be pushed out. So at 48 blobs, this becomes already quite high. Extrapolating that over a full month, you get, like with 48 blobs, you get 21 terabytes, which on AWS will cost you $2K for illustration purposes. some potential conclusions. To support these numbers, relays may have to specialize even more. And if the costs of this outweigh the benefits, like what happens? Is there a chance that they set an artificial ceiling on the blob count that's lower than the actual like blob target after PeerDAS? That would be quite bad. But yeah, for certain, we should consider the PBS pipeline when talking about scaling blobs and not just validators, because relays and so on, and then maybe in ePBS builders, they will bear the bulk of these propagation costs. So yeah, like also slot restructuring would be great here, especially stuff like ePBS, because then you have more time to propagate data, which is ideal in this case. Cool, that was 5 minutes. Thank you. And if you have any questions, please ask.
Questions? Okay.
Thank you for the talk. Have you looked into gossip sub improvement proposals like this one from EF, the WFR gossip, which would then reduce the mesh size and not propagate the block to every peer? Would that should have an impact on the PeerDAS as well?
I haven't looked into those protocols yet. But yeah, I think like before this ships, there will be some changes in gossip sub, because right now it just seems like very inefficient compared to like what the network actually needs. But yeah, I haven't looked into specific changes yet.